Good evening, members. On behalf of Ladies Study Group, I would like to wish you all a very warm welcome today. As we all know, sport has the power to change lives. Sport teaches everyone, including women and girls, teamwork, self reliance, resilience, and confidence, and is therefore one of the great drivers of gender equality. Importantly, the women who are in sport defy gender stereotypes and social norms and make very inspiring role models and show us all that men and women are equals. And today I am so proud that we are celebrating the remarkable achievements and the unmatched potential of one such woman in sport, the undisputed queen of Indian cricket and our nation's pride, a global icon who is often referred to as the living legend, the Indian cricket captain ODI, Mithali Raj. I would now like to welcome Mithali to join us on our screen. Hi, Mithali.
Hi, Dia.
Welcome to Ladies Study Group and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
So Mithali took up India's favorite sport at the age of 10 and is today one of the key architects to bring women's cricket to the forefront in the country. She is fierce, she is feisty, and a testament to the virtues of diligence and determination. She is hugely admired and loved for her talent and her grit. She is known as one of the most elegant batters in world cricket, and her calm and composed batting style and her trademark floppy hat have always grabbed eyeballs. And in 2018, she became the first Indian player ever to have reached the 2000 mark in the T20 Internationals. She is the only player, both male or female, to have captained two World Cup finals, and she is the first woman cricketer to play in 200 ODI matches. She is the highest run scorer in women's international cricket and the only female cricketer to surpass the 6,000 run mark in the WODIs. Mithali is also the first player who has scored seven consecutive 50s in the ODIs, and she also holds the record for the maximum half centuries in the WODIs. And she is the first woman to complete 21 years in international cricket and counting. And she has received several awards and accolades, which include the Arjuna Award and the Padma Shri. And she has also been chosen as the Vogue Woman Achiever of the Year. And in a fun fact, she is also the first Indian woman cricketer to have a custom Twitter emoji in her name. And she is a December birthday girl who has just had her birthday 2 days back. And so we would also like to wish you a very happy birthday from all of us at Ladies Study Group.
Thank you.
I would now like to welcome Gautam Behmani to our screen. Hi, Gautam.
Hi, Dia. Good to be here.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this for us, Gautam. I know you're so busy and your schedule is tight with the India Australia matches which are on. So I want to add that Gautam is an anchor,
Um,
a broadcaster,
I'm
a
sorry, but again,
commentator.
I think there is some
Is there an
audio
audio
disturbance
glitch?
that I'm unable to hear you all.
Okay, let me try and get that sorted. Uh, is it okay now? Yeah, Gautam, can you hear me?
I can, clearly.
Is it better now, Mitali? My technical team is trying to tweak the sound system. Is that better?
Now it's better.
Okay, good, great. So let me go ahead and let me introduce Gautam to our members. So he is, as I said, an anchor, a broadcaster, a commentator, a DJ, an entertainer, and equally importantly, a fashionista. So in cricket lingo, a true all-rounder. Born on the auspicious cricketing date of the 25th of June, which interestingly is the date that India played its first ever cricket test match in 1932, and it's also the date that India won the World Cup cricket in 1983. So I think cricket has been in his consciousness ever since he was born, and today he is among the most sought after cricket commentators. The game has also brought out his wilder side, and we've all watched him do live commentary from a helicopter, report from treetops, dips in jacuzzis, mingle with the Maori tribal warriors, dress up like an Arab sheikh, or while having the gall to face Murali Dharan, Rashid Khan, and Wasim Akram at the nets. He's also the successful author of an engaging anecdotal travel book called Reverse Sweep. And in 2007, he was a recipient of the Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism from the President of India, Sri Abdul Kalamji. So over to both of you now.
Thank you very much, Dia. Also, someone having a very bad hair day, but we'll sort that one out. I think with that introduction, it was even more hair raising for me, but wonderful to be in
Getting
the
fab.
company. Thank you, Dia. Compliments will get you everywhere. Anyway, it's wonderful to be in the company of Mithali on behalf of Ladies Study Group and myself. Belated happy birthday for the other day.
Thank you, Gautam.
But I have to say, I have to ask, are you absolutely certain that with each passing year when you have a birthday, you actually age? Because it seems that you go backwards.
I don't know. I would be happy to go backward so that I get more years to play.
Well, you've already, I think, among all the achievements, I had all these listed down. Dia was very kind enough to list all of your achievements there. But I think for me, what stood out was the 21 years. Yes, it's runs, number of ODIs. We can talk about your achievements in 3 formats of the game. But I think just that longevity and to still be that fit and that hungry, tell us the secret behind that success.
Well, I think I've always believed, irrespective which format or which level of cricket I play, whether it is domestic season, domestic game, or international, it didn't matter to me as long as I'm getting runs. So that is how I was brought up by my first coach, late Mr. Sampath Kumar. I remember him telling me that whenever you get onto the ground with a bat in hand, I want nothing less than a 50. So that is something I've always worked towards. And playing international cricket, that means to say you have a responsibility of just not of yourself to score runs, but you're actually a hope of millions and billions of people. So when you're playing at that level, representing your national team, representing your country, I think nothing less than 100 is what expected out of a player, like the commitment, in terms of the commitment. So I think I've always worked to make sure that I'm fit, I'm not a liability to any team which I'm representing, so that when I get onto the field, the team should, if whatever role they give me, I should be able to sort of play according to that. So these are the thoughts that I've always had in my mind, and that is why I think, even though I'm not a fitness freak, I make sure every day I'm there training and putting those hours in my training session to sort of get on with the current standards of women's cricket.
Yeah, because it's several eras that you've spanned, and I think that's the most interesting part. I'll take you back not just pre-cricket days, but since you did mention the demand for a 50 and how people want 100, when you walked out onto the field for the first time in India colours in any format of the game, you walked away with 100 at Milton Keynes. I mean, that sort of, when you got to that 3-figure mark, did that tell you, yes, I belong at this level?
See, honestly, Gautam, at 16, to go back, years back, I think the only thing which I remember now is the sort of pressure that I had on my shoulders, is because coming from Hyderabad, and I remember going on that tour. The manager, she was also from Hyderabad, so she told me Azharuddin has scored 100, 300s in a row. I think on his debut, maybe. Am I right?
First 3
Yeah,
test
so
matches,
she said,
yes.
"You're also from Hyderabad, you should also score." So I was like, "What, the 16-year-old puny little girl?" And then you're told that, that guy scored 300s in a row. So I was more of pressure of that expectation was there on my head, rather than like, enjoying representing or wearing the blues for the first time. So when I scored the 100, I was more than happy, like satisfied. Okay, at least the people who had expectations sort of are happy. So that was what actually ran through my mind. And I think I was quite young to understand the entire platform which was given to me, because back then nobody really knew that, okay, Indian team touring England, or this is a young girl, she made a debut, she scored 100. So if I would have done in the current times, maybe it would have been, the impact would have been far better and huge than back when we didn't have social media or we were not under BCCI. But I think it was good to see my dad happy, the people who've actually supported me or encouraged me in the first few years as a young cricketer. So I was just satisfied that I was able to live up to the expectation when I scored that 100.
But I mean, just to let people know what happened on that particular day, India were playing Ireland in that one-off ODI before going on to play England. And batting first, you made 258 for no loss. Chandrakanta Kaul was your captain at that time, due to bat at number 3. She would have been padded up for 50 overs, didn't come into bat. She couldn't have been very happy with you.
Well, over the years, even I don't like when the openers give us the long partnership, because you're padded up and you're waiting for your turn, and then it's some in certain way, like you feel drained out because you're already prepared and raring to go, and then you're sitting and waiting. But at times, I think it's great to have a good partnerships, because it sort of gives confidence for the batters who are coming in. Even I've been in her shoes. There were quite a few innings in the past where I was padded up for number 3 and never got an opportunity, I guess. But overall, if you see, if the team wins with a huge margin or with no loss, I think that's great to be part of such teams.
But interesting, your partner at the other end who also got 100, Reshma Gandhi,
Yeah.
she only ended up playing 2 matches for India in her career, and for you it was the other end of the spectrum. So it was almost as if, as you said, without social media, without all that exposure, you really had to stick at it. Not that she did anything wrong.
Yeah.
After she played those first couple of games, she just had competition, being the wicketkeeper. She just couldn't get into the team. It was almost like the male equivalent when anyone who kept wickets in Dhoni's era really didn't get much of a chance, or the 4 spinners in the 70s. So I guess that was the case with that. But for you, it was that 100 on debut, and then you really didn't look back. In that era, when you had the likes of Hemlata Kala and Anjum and all these people playing, they've moved on to different careers, different things. You're still going at it.
Well, I'm still going at it, yes, but just a small tweak there. Rather than an opener, I've come down to the middle order. Now I go at number 3 and number 4. That was probably the only series where I have opened for India in the one day format. Of course, T20 I have opened in the later stages. So it's a nice moment, because I do understand how it feels to open an innings for your country when you walk in. I've always had that feeling. There should be one match at least where I'm opening for India in the current scenario, where you have people turning up in the stadiums and you have the national anthem being played and you walk in and face the first ball, which I probably did in the T20s when I started to open for India.
I'd like you to rewind to a time. I mean, now you have these young girls coming up, growing up in such a different era. But for you, even before walking out at Milton Keynes that day against Ireland, what made the 10-year-old Mithali even contemplate going into what was essentially a boys' game?
Well, getting into, see, honestly, it wasn't my decision to get into cricket. It was my dad's decision to pursue the sport as a professional career for me, where back then, when there was nothing in women's cricket. Until I played senior level, I didn't know the backstory of sort of, we have legends like Shanta, Diana, Sandhya Agarwal. I didn't know until I played the senior level in 95. Until then, I thought it could be one of those small club matches, club teams. And I did play a lot of under 16 and under 19s, but my awareness started only when I got into the senior level. And today, to ask my dad, I did ask him a few times to understand from which headspace that he's taken the decision to pursue a profession which we didn't have any returns back then. There was absolutely no money. A lot of girls have pursued it only for the passion and love for the game. In terms of facility, there was none. We've played in parks, we've traveled in unreserved. The matches were once in two years you would get one international series, and we literally had to run from pillar to post for sponsors. So in times like this, to actually pursue this sport, and that too for a young girl from a background like, I'm a Tamilian, so I'm a South Indian, and we did have a lot of issues at home. My grandparents didn't wanted me to get into sports, leave alone cricket. They didn't wanted their granddaughter into sport, because none of my cousins have ever pursued sport as a career. So for them, it was the first time. to sort of continue to support me in this career, my parents did had to go through a lot of sacrifices, they've actually shielded me from a lot of negativity, I would say. I didn't had to face the sexism and the society negative comments that one had to face during those years, because I was probably shielded and cocooned by my parents. But it was a very difficult decision, I would say. If I was in my parents' shoes, I wouldn't have probably taken this decision. But I don't know. It's just that maybe dad played for Air Force. My brother played till his school level, so he wanted to see my brother do well in the sport, which he couldn't, and I started to doing well. So I think it was his decision to take me into cricket. Um, but then for me, the motivation was to make my dad happy. That was the only motivation for a long time. Even today, for me the validation of his is very important, because of him that I have started playing cricket. And yes, it was a male dominant sport, but I was coached by a male coach. I've played with the boys, senior boys, young boys, and I still train with the boys. And now I don't think it's anymore a male dominant sport, or the roundtable discussions are not limited to men's cricket. People do talk about women's cricket, and I'm grateful that I'm able to see the evolution of women's cricket in a country from that era in today's time. And the journey of women's cricket, I've been part of it. I can only say I'm grateful to see today.
Exactly. I think that transition is the most important part, because obviously there are some of the names that you mentioned, even someone like Anjum who played alongside, now she's a commentator, many of the others who are playing coaching roles, also who have played alongside you, Mamta Maben being one of them. She was one of the coaches in the recent Sharjah Triangular. So they've all played alongside you, and now they're senior, sort of taking a step back and looking at the game. But you've been in the game from that era into this era. So there's no better person who can actually see the transition, the evolution from when you were just participants to being athletes at the same level as the men. I think that is the biggest challenge that you've come through.
Yeah, I think it started when we came under BCCI. Obviously, when you come under BCCI, a lot of things have changed for women's cricket. I would say one is that we were access to the facilities. The biggest change initially was that, we were able to go to NCA, the National Cricket Academy, where we are trained under experts like physios and trainers. We have batting coach and bowling coach who can actually work on your skill. So when you're taken care of by all these people, so your awareness about your own game improves drastically. Then when you just have to prepare from your home back to the stadium, and you're just going in and, just as you mentioned, participating in the tournaments, not getting any result, still struggling to improve your game. So when you have these people where the support staff is so equipped to help you elevate your game, and naturally it's sort of it reflects in the performance of the team. It started with that, and then we started to have a regular international series every year. With from say one series in 2 years, we've come to a year where we have like good 3-4 series. That's the sort of exposure one gets playing at home or touring abroad, and then as contracted players. I think that is the biggest change. Where the board is actually taking care of the girls, because I do know that a lot of girls in the Indian team are come from places from the interiors, like Chakda, like of course Julian is from Chakda, but there are some girls from interiors of Bangalore or Uttarakhand, where the entire household is dependent on them for the financial stuff. So when you're a contracted player, when you're playing for India, you know that okay, you get certain amount, so you are aware that you don't have to run about or change your profession for a better profession to earn, but you can continue playing cricket and still look after your family. So I think being contracted players really helped, and that is why I think a lot of girls are still continuing after certain years. Because I remember in early 2000 also, when the girls reached 23-24 years, the parents start to, quote them saying that, okay, you've played enough, it's time for you to shift your profession, start earning some money or get married. One of my very close friends, she got married at 21. She's from Bangalore and she got married at 21. I said, it's too early for you to get married, why don't you continue playing? She said, I'm just unlucky that I don't have a supportive parents like your parents. They gave me 1 year, either you represent India or get married and settle down and start a job. And it is very sad to actually come across such players who are very talented, but for these factors have to let go a profession that they've passionately loved, which now I see young girls and parents also, after in last 3-4 years, the way women's cricket has bursted into our country with a sort of branding that it has on its own. I think now the parents are sort of a little lenient towards that factors, where they allow the girls to continue to play beyond those years, and they don't push them for settling down or changing the profession to earn money, because now when you can earn playing for your state, you play a better level, you earn more. Playing for country, you come into the contracted grading system, and so you're playing for India also, you earn money. So I think it's sort of looks very lucrative now. The profession sort of looks good to pursue as a career for young girls.
I think there are great lessons to take out, because many people who will be listening into this will not necessarily be cricket fanatics wanting to know about statistics and other things, but it's about the lessons that you take out for this entire generation of someone who's got a daughter who might want to pursue that, and you look upon it in the same way as you might if a son wanted to go and play a game, or the other way around. So I think that's a great lesson, and the whole new generation obviously bred a lot on T20 cricket. And for those who might be part of that group who say, Mithali, sometimes she doesn't score quickly enough, we've heard that enough. I can tell you, I remember that 97 that you got very close to a T20 100 against Malaysia in the Asia Cup. But this flip side to that, the reason why I brought up that innings is the game is spreading. I mean, who would have thought with Thailand, Malaysia, China, all these countries coming up? Is it sometimes difficult when you've reached a certain level of the game to play against players who are from a developing nation, and hence where their techniques might be still developing, even though they're playing for a country in an Asia Cup?
I would say difficult in terms of, because when you play Australia and New Zealand, after year, you kind of know like who can bowl to what extent, or what are the tools that they have. And
exactly that.
Yeah, those are the players that are consistent. Whereas the players who are in the developing countries, they're actually growing. So they may not be consistent in what they are doing, but they will do well at times and they can be bad at times. So it's sort of, it's challenging in its own way, in terms of the speed and the consistency. As a batter, that, you have to be focused enough, because there are bowlers who bowl like 3 wides and suddenly they bowl one onto the stump and you get out, and you would be thinking like, she literally bowled 3 wides and I get out to the only ball that she bowled on the stump. So these things happen, and there are times when the matches are actually very close, especially in the T20 format. I think even Thailand, when we played in Malaysia, it was almost very close, that we did win, but then there are times when the reputation is at stake when you're playing with such young team or growing teams, because you don't know what to expect from them. But whereas they know your game very well, they know what Mithali does or Harman does or the way Smriti plays, they come prepared, but you don't know because you've never seen them before. So for what will you plan? So you go in with an open mind. It can be challenging, but I guess sometimes it is required to test how you fare in such standards.
Yeah,
also,
in fact, yeah, that's why
I think it helps them also to learn, watching good teams playing against good sides. It helps them to learn better things. At the end of the day, after the game, we have a few chat, we exchange ideas, we understand how they work on their game or the facilities they have. It's sort of, it's a healthy conversation. And you've seen in the recently World Cup in Australia how Thailand has done so well. I was quite impressed. For first timers to get into T20 World Cup to play against the big sides, they've done really well.
And what a story when Natakam Chantam came into that tri-series in Sharjah. Didn't get really much of a chance with the bat, but whatever little chance she got in the field, that one stop, that one catch, She established herself. It just shows how it's coming forward and the game's developing.
Yeah, I think even I was quite. I was waiting when they would give her an opportunity. I wanted to see her back, but I guess that one fielding which she did was something that none of us have expected. I mean, we've seen before like flipping and everything or sliding, but this was something very new, and it showed that there is still so much of things that one can discover playing after 21 years. That was something which I've seen for the first time, not even in men's cricket probably. So it was really nice to see that girl put in so much of effort, and it is a big thing for her country also to come in on such a platform to showcase that kind of a talent, being acknowledged by people around the world. It really helps a player and her teammates. Tomorrow they would want to be part of the women's T20 challenge, and that I think is the best part of our T20 challenge, is that we've given chance to all the Asian players to come in and be part of it.
Yeah, just for the record, the day Mithali got 97 in that Asia Cup game, Malaysia were all out for 27. But do you regret not getting those 3 runs? Because a T20 100 is a T20 100. I know you were 96 not out going into the last over. Deepti was batting at the other end, and you managed to get just that one single. You had 2 chances that over to get the 100.
Yeah, I did. I know one of the selectors who was watching the match, he said, why you didn't tell her to change? I said, this is all part of the game. No, but you missed 100. I said, it's okay. If it is, I always say this, if it's written in our fate, it's in a destiny, I will anyhow get it. And if it is not written, if it is only 96 not out, so I can't do much about it. But I said, the innings has given me a sort of confidence, and that is what I would like to take from it. That
But how much confidence
as a batter who's played for so many one-dayers and less of T20 comparatively, playing 20 overs, trying to figure out how to pace the innings is something, that is what I take out of that innings.
But going back, the one time I missed an opportunity to watch you bat, and I regret that, was between 2 test matches on India's tour of England in 2002. India had just finished the Trent Bridge test match where Parthiv made his debut at 17. We were on our way to Headingley, and I had hoped to go down to Taunton to go and watch the women's game on that particular occasion, the test match. I couldn't because I had another commitment to cover a side game for the men's team, but I missed out on a double 100. How important was that in your career or in anyone's career? Because, you talk about 100 in T20 cricket or 150 in an ODI, but a double 100 in test cricket, it's something that's very few have achieved.
There is a backstory to it. We played the one-dayers. We were coming from a very bad one-day series. My scores were literally like single digit. All of us, as a team, we fared very badly. I probably didn't even call up home, the fear of hearing my dad scream through the telephone. So I didn't.
So he has a temper unlike you.
He doesn't have a temper like me. When it comes to cricket, he's like, he's just like anybody, any of you all, like cricket fanatic.
Fair enough.
So I told him, I didn't call him up. And my best friend Nushin, she was on tour, and I was telling her, I said, this is quite shameful, like all of us like single digit in the score sheet. This is not, as a batter, I don't want to score like 5-8. This is not something that I have worked hard for. And the first test was washed out because of rains, and we have the test match was scheduled, the second test, and I think when the first test was washed out, we were watching a match. I don't remember which team, but it was England versus another team, and one of the players scored a double 100, and we were watching it on television, and I just told her, I said how the feeling would be to score a 200, a double 100, and how many hours he would have spent sort of focused and temperament. And the boys have this thing, to jump in the air and they give that thumbs up and stuff like that. So I said, I want to do that. I want to feel how it will be on the ground. So she turned around, she said, it's just that even you can do it, provided you be disciplined in the ball that you want to leave and play the shots, play closer. And she gave this sort of a suggestion. I said okay, but anyway, let's see, I said. And then when we played this test match, we were playing the test match with just 4 batters, and the rest of them were all bowlers. So I knew that, now with 4 batters in, the responsibility is clearly on all the 4 batters to play through the innings. when I walked in, and when of course I had a partnership with a bit with Anjum and Hema, and of course Julian later down the order. I didn't expect that I would score a double hundred. Honestly, for me, the first thing was to score a 50, as that's how I told you I was trained to. When I scored 100, yeah, I felt nice, but I knew that the job was still not done. And when Julian joined me, I was almost tired because I used to play with a very heavy bat, 1500, yeah, 1500 grams, 1.5 kg. So just imagine playing 10 hours with that bat. So I was literally drained out. And when I was closing in on 205, I remember the manager sent her word through the 12th man. She said you need 3 or 4 runs to equal the record, and 1 run more than that to break the record. I was like, what record? I asked her. I said, पता नहीं, मैनेजर ने बोला है, मैम ने बोला, तो मैं तुमको बोल रही हूँ, तुमको और 4 रन बनाने, इक्वल करने के लिए, 5 रन रिकॉर्ड तोड़ने के लिए, अब तुम देख लो. So I was like, ठीक है यार, 200 किया है तो 4 रन तो कर ही सकती हूँ. So that's how I scored runs. And at that point in England, I didn't think it was a big thing. As I said, no television. I don't even have a recording of that innings. It's just that all these teammates of mine, whenever we meet, that's when we talk about that innings. But then, yes, when I came back home from Delhi, I remember I came in AP Express. It took 24 hours from Delhi to Hyderabad. I was telling my friend, I said, there's so many people on the railway platform. I think some minister is coming or something. She said, maybe, yeah, I've never seen so many people. Somebody must be coming. And when I got down, little did I realize all of them have turned out to be for me. So she's like, Mitali, this is for you only and nobody else. And that's the first time I think my mother came to receive me. And we had the sports minister and everybody from the state department, state government who came to receive me. So it was um, I'm not used to so many people to receive me. I have always had my dad who would drop me and pick me up, and my dad was like lost in the crowd. I said, "Where's dad?" So I think it was a very nice feeling. It was probably the start of how the media started to cover women's cricket in my own state, and since then there'd been a regular coverage of women's cricket, especially in Telangana, because I think at some level my state media have really worked on writing a lot of articles about women's cricket, and I think 2005 and then 2017 have been where media has actually worked on promoting women's cricket with the sort of performance that the team has done. So 2002, I would say, after the world record thing, that is when people started to know women's cricket, because everywhere the article was women cricketer. So in a way, my own identity also has helped develop that sort of thing in Telangana, where a lot of people started to associate Mithali Raj. She's a women cricketer. There is women's cricket, there is Indian women's cricket team. They've gone to England. So since then, slowly the perception of people, the perception about general public started to change. Then they were not ignorant about कि अच्छा लड़कियों का team भी है क्या. Usually that is what I've always came across. They would ask कि लड़कियों का team है, हमें लगा कि सिर्फ hockey team है लड़कियों का. ऐसे नहीं, cricket team भी होती है. तो they would ask questions like tennis ball से खेलते हैं क्योंकि वो नरम होता है ना, नहीं तो लड़कियों को लग जाती है and all. I said nothing like that. We all play professional cricket. So that ignorance started to slowly fade away after the 2002 world record.
Yeah, I think it would be. But I mean, whenever I ask questions in a quiz, one of the favorites has always been who's the first person ever to score a one-day double century. And obviously, every hand goes up for Sachin, Sehwag. Yeah. If you say no, then they'll say Chris Gayle, Martin Guptill. I'm like, yeah, you've gone through all the names. Think. And then you'll have to explain Belinda Clark. You have to explain 1973 was a women's 50 over World Cup long before the men played one. So there have been areas where you're one step ahead, but people need to know about that. But before I get Dia back in, we have to know one more side of you, because we've seen the cricketing side of you. We've seen the example, the longevity that you've brought into the game. But Mithali, the person, I know there are so many bits that we can know about. One test match was, of course, Taunton, but take us forward to Wormsley. And there was an incident in Wormsley that you were going to tell us about that brings out the side of you, the kind of things you might do almost to prepare before you go out to bat.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that Mithali doesn't, she doesn't feel nervous or she doesn't get anxious about things. But even I, like everybody else, feel the jitteries, the butterflies in my stomach. So yes, that test match, I would say, as a player and as a captain, it has tested me because I had 8 debutants in the team, and we were playing that test match after 2006. So good gap of 8 years. And the entire team in 15 girls, there were only 3 girls who played the 2006 test match. That's me, Julan, and Karuna. The rest of them were new to the format. So for me to educate them first, how test match is played and how the match sort of changes, it changes in a year, in an hour sometimes, with fall of 2-3 wickets, it changes. So I had to explain to the entire team, and then playing England in England was the toughest thing. England was Ashes winners back then. So they were coming from a successful tour, and we were like, having this inexperienced team. I was leading them in. So I also, as a captain, I had a lot of doubts. Honestly, I did have a lot of doubts about, which I didn't say then, but now I can openly say so. So I was like, okay, at least I want the team to give them a good fight. I don't want to fall like pins, but I want the team to stand up and give them a good fight. So when we had a lead about say 20 odd runs, and we got into we were chasing around 180 runs. We had to score 184 to win. One of the players already had she had a shoulder displaced, because while fielding she dislocated a shoulder. So we were pretty much nine wickets only. So I knew that it was important for the top order to score as many runs and not leave it to the middle lower order. And of course, Smriti and Trishi were Trish Kamni. They opened the innings. I was in the dressing room with Niranjana. Both of us share a lot of. We have a common love for books, so both of us are into books. So I usually carry the book. So I was padded up, and I was to go number 4, and as I was padding up, there was a shout, first ball. I said, just look, Ninja, somebody got out or what? She looked, she said, no, it's just an appeal. Mithu, relax, you pad up, I will tell you. So I padded up, I was ready, and I was reading the book because I didn't want to watch the match because I was very nervous. And I didn't want to go out and sit, because if the girls see me nervous, I know that, they will probably go into the match nervous. So because it is very infectious, if your confidence, it spreads around. If you're nervous, anxious, even that spreads around, which I didn't wanted. So I was in the dressing room. I didn't even watch one ball of that innings. I told her, each time they're shouting, please go to the window and tell me if there is a fall off wicket. So I was reading the book and I was telling her, I was sharing the story, and she's like, Mithu, you also please help me. Even I'm very nervous. So I think that was something I've always done. Reading books is one of the reasons why I read books, is because I'm nervous and I don't want my teammates to know about it. And that is why it's sort of, indulge in reading. Because when I walk into bat, I don't want to go in with a preconceived notion if somebody is bowling like 120 kilometers per hour, or if the ball is turning so much. I just want to go in with an open mind, so that whatever happens on the ground, I'm able to assess it and plan and, play according there, rather than going in with whatever factors you already seen playing. So I think that really helped. I told you I was just dusting my bookshelf and I came across one of those books which was dated way back. So I sent her the picture. I said, "Do you remember this book?" She said, "Yeah, I very much remember." So I think
What a
those
story.
are good moments. Yeah, those are good memories.
Certainly, yeah. But the one thing, honestly, before as I'm just going to call Dia back in, but the one thing I think the women score over the men for sure is that they get some of the prettiest venues to play in, no matter what happens.
Yes,
I mean, I've seen
definitely. I
some of
think,
these venues,
yeah.
the J. Paul Getty Stadium, or the ground, you can't call it a stadium. Wormsley, as you mentioned, the thatched roofs, the little grass embankment that you go up onto the dressing
It's like
rooms.
you're getting back in time in those 1960s, 70s, those old black and white frames which they have in Lords, something like that. So you feel like that, everywhere the ground, you walk down into the ground. It's very beautiful. That's true.
Yeah, certainly is. All right, Dia, I'm going to call you back. And by the way, when you were completing the story about Taunton, when you got to the 100, did you do the whole jump?
No, I was too shy to do it. I was
That is
very
what.
shy to do it. Even the 2017 World Cup where I scored 100 against New Zealand, I remember Veda, she's like, Mitu, you always wanted to jump in there, no, do it. I said, no, it's not coming, I'll not do it.
That is the one side of Mithali Raj, the shy side of it. Scores the runs, double 100, 97 in a T20, but that jump, maybe we'll wait for it one day. We will remember that. And when you do jump in the air, fists up, everything, television cameras on you, we will remember this moment.
David Warner.
Yeah, then you'll enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
David Warner, I think, needs to practice that before. We get very worried every time he does that. Not from an Indian perspective, then you think he'll be out for the next 10 games. But yeah, you need to practice that as well. Dia, I'm sorry, we went well over time, but the problem is when you have a champion like Mithali, you can go on for hours.
And I was totally mesmerized actually listening to you, Mithali. And I think your humility has just come across so strongly. And I wanted to ask you one very basic question. What does success mean to you? Because you're so successful and yet you've maintained this humble attitude to everything, whether in cricket or even as a woman. So, what does success mean to you? I also want to add, what does failure mean to you? Because I know you've spoken so eloquently about, that 2017 World Cup final and how you dealt with that and how it just broke your heart, when it didn't come through in our favor. So tell me, how do you deal with that situation? How does it affect your self-doubt? Does it create self-doubt in you? Because it's not only about sport. I think in every sphere in life, we are dealing with these situations of success, of failure, and how do we deal with that as women, as individuals?
Well, I think success for everybody is quite different. For me also, if you were asked me as a 16-year-old what is success, I would say scoring 100 is a success. But now, coming so far and having such a long journey, for me success is, I would say that showing your vulnerability, showing your emotions when you feel it. I thought that being strong and not showing your emotions is it depicts that you're a very strong individual. You have control over it, but sometimes as humans we falter. It's part of it, and how do you recover from that is for me success. And sharing your vulnerabilities with your teammates and giving them the scope to grow as a leader, and having all the emotions, having all the factors, and yet being compassionate and empathy towards your towards people around you. For me, that is success, because cricket for me is a career, it's a profession. But beyond that, I'm a human being, I'm a person, and I would like people also to know that yes, I'm successful in my career, but I'm also a person, and I would like to be the way a normal person is. For me, being normal, being common is also success. I relate a lot with that, because I do see a lot of people every day. They travel for hours to work, seeing my mates work, the sort of challenges they have. I see my challenge is very small compared to them, or the sort of lifestyle that I have. I'm just grateful. So each time I see them, they're sort of a motivation for me. And success is evolving too, just as we evolve with age, with experience. Success is also evolving from one stage to the other as human beings. Yeah. And failure is again. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you about the failure. Yes, what you were going to say.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you keep the team motivated actually when you go through a loss? That was actually what I wanted to know. How do you keep the team spirit up?
I think the best way is to again remind them the vision that all of us are on, the sort of path that we've chosen. Says for the World Cups, especially for the World Cups, during the preparation itself, I keep giving them the sort of vision that we are not just going there to be the semi-finalist. I want the team to get into the finals. I want the team to compete and just not be participants, or just not be happy winning against smaller sides. But I want the team to be at least number one or number two. I want Australians to
Hmm.
fear us. I want the New Zealanders, when they have a series, they should be like planning for pretty much 6, 7 members of the Indian team, and not one or two players. So I sort of give them the goals that as a team that we need to achieve. And when you fail, yes, you again remind them that, and um, and sort of give them confidence. There I would say that there are times when you have to be hard, but there are also times when you support them, because as a captain, I don't chop too many players in and out of the team, because I do believe that as a player, even I would want some comfort from my captain. So if I put myself in their shoes, I probably in a better position to understand how emotional they are about playing for the team, wanting to play for the country. And I gather my lessons from that and see how I can maneuver and give them confidence when they are down.
And also tell us about your affirmations. I believe you have these little chits that you put everywhere to
Yeah.
make yourself feel good. That's such an amazing thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that also I picked up from one of the books. I don't remember, but as I said, even I have those jitteries when I get up early in the morning against
Absolutely.
playing a big game or in tournaments, or when I'm coming from a bad phase or lack of runs. So there is a lot of self doubt. I don't deny it. But I think these are things which help me. Of course, preparation does. But if I have these affirmations on the doors, when I get up, the first thing I see, I pin it up there in the toilet, on the mirrors where I hang out a lot in my room, so that each time there is a doubt, there is something to counter that. Each time I feel like, okay, what is going to happen next, and I look up, I read that affirmation, and it works well. So that really helped me. I tried it out in one of the tournaments, and since then I always carry few things. Each time I have different set of affirmations, but it does help me a lot.
Amazing. So, how does Mithali relax? What do you do when you're not on the field?
Well, I try to calm my mind, because there's so much runs in our mind. Even when I'm not training, there's still so many
True.
things that you're
Yeah.
constantly sort of organizing. I think I read a lot, because that is something helps me to shift my mind from reality, I would say. I sketch sometimes, not very often, but I do. It helps me to unwind. And I spend time with children, with animals, because they don't judge you for who you are, and they just accept you, the whatever you are having fun with. Which the same if you are with people, grown up people, they're sort of, okay, she's Mithali Raj. Half of the time they don't enjoy, and they don't allow me also to enjoy. So I might as well pick up young girls, young boys, where I have fun with. Yeah.
That's so sweet. And I know that you did a Zumba class with your mother so that you could both spend time together. Is that
She
true?
was shy. I told her, you start working out. She said, I feel shy to dance the Zumba classes. I said, okay, for you, I will join you. So I joined her for 1 month.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I know that there's a movie that's Tapusi Pannu is doing, and I think it's called Shabash Mittu. And that's a biopic that's coming out in your name. So I think Tapsi has very big shoes to fill. So how is that going? Have you been working with her on that?
Well, my close friend is going to help her train and learn batting. But I think in terms of acting, I mean, she's the best person to enact. But when it comes to the skill part, yeah, I told her she has to learn the cover drive, because that is a trademark with the hat and everything. So she's like, okay, Captain, I'll try and learn it. I'll work very hard. I said, yeah.
She's got big shoes to fill, as I said. So, Mithali, Ladies Study Group is over 50 years old. And since our inception, we've always supported and encouraged sport, and we deeply admire and respect the women in sport. And so we were determined not to let this corona crisis change the way we wanted to honor and celebrate you. And so today, what we have with us is two very special guests who have braved the risks of the ongoing pandemic and traveled a very long distance to be with us at the Ladies Study Group studio and enjoy the privilege of asking their idol a question each. So I'm going to now invite them to the screen to ask you their questions. I'm going to introduce them. One is Ayantika Guha, and she plays for the state of Nagaland. She's an all-rounder. And we also have Pooja Rajak, who plays for the state of Bengal, and she's also an all-rounder. So I'm inviting them to join us on screen from the Ladies Study Group studio now.
हाय मैम, गुड इवनिंग।
हाय।
ये मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है कि आपसे बात करने का मौका मिला, क्योंकि आप ड्रीम प्लेयर में से एक हो। तो एक सवाल है आपसे कि आप
जी।
मैच से पहले बैटिंग के लिए कैसे प्रिपेयर होते हैं?
मैच के पहले मैं थोड़ा होमवर्क करती हूँ अपने बैटिंग का। जैसे दूसरे टीम में अगर कोई, जैसे हम ऑस्ट्रेलिया को खेल रहे हैं, तो हम ऑस्ट्रेलिया के बॉलर्स को मैं देखती हूँ कि उनके बॉलर्स में कौन फॉर्म में है, कौन जो विकेट ज़्यादा ले रहा है, और कौन बॉलर्स जो बीच मिडिल ओवर्स में बॉलिंग करते हैं, कौन स्पिनर्स, कौन जो अच्छे फॉर्म में है, या फास्ट बॉलर्स कैसे डाल रहे हैं। तो थोड़ा ये बहुत होमवर्क मैं करती हूँ। जैसे उनके जो प्रीवियस इंटरनेशनल, जैसे ऑस्ट्रेलिया अगर पहले किसी टीम के साथ खेला है तो कौन फॉर्म में, बेसिकली उनका जो फॉर्म्स में स्टडी करती हूँ, उस हिसाब से मैं अपना बैटिंग करती हूँ प्रिपरेशन। जैसे अगर 6 बॉलर में से उनके 4 बॉलर फास्ट बॉलर्स हैं और 2-3 स्पिनर्स हैं, तो वो ज़्यादातर फास्ट बॉलिंग यूनिट ज़्यादा ओवर्स डालते हैं। उस हिसाब से मैं फास्ट बॉलर्स को ज़्यादा ट्रेनिंग ज़्यादा करती हूँ, उनको फेस ज़्यादा करती हूँ। अगर स्पिनर्स डोमिनेटेड है तो स्पिनर्स को ज़्यादा खेलना नेट्स में वैसे प्रिपरेशन होती है। लेकिन जो प्रिपरेशन होती है वो हमारे कंट्रोल में। मैच में जो होता है वो ज़्यादातर अपने कंट्रोल में नहीं होता है। तो मैच में हम जो प्रिपरेशन का कॉन्फिडेंस है वो लेकर जाते हैं मैच में, और हमेशा कॉन्फिडेंट ही जाते हैं। जैसा होता है वो अभी हमारे हाथ में तो नहीं है, लेकिन ये है कि हमारा बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस या बेस्ट जो माइंडसेट है, क्लैरिटी रहेगा माइंड में, तो आप अच्छा खेलोगे। लेकिन बहुत ज़्यादा डाउट्स रहता है माइंड में, तो फिर बॉडी और माइंड का सिंक नहीं होती है ना, इसीलिए चांसेस ज़्यादा होते हैं कि हम रॉन्ग डिलीवरी पिक करते हैं शॉट खेलने के लिए, या गलत शॉट खेलते हैं।
ओके मैम, थैंक यू मैम।
थैंक यू।
आपसे बात करके अच्छा लगा।
ऑल द बेस्ट।
थैंक यू।
हेलो मैम, गुड इवनिंग मैम। मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है कि आप मेरे साथ बैठ के बात कर रही हैं। और मेरा एक सवाल था आपसे कि आप एक लेजेंड है सबसे बड़ी, मतलब इंडिया की, और झूलन गोस्वामी भी आपके साथ खेली हैं जो बंगाल से रिप्रेजेंट करती हैं। और मैच में आप बहुत सारी स्कोर्स डोमेस्टिक्स में, इंटरनेशनल में, वो प्रिपेयर कैसे करती हैं आप?
जैसे पूजा, फिजिकल प्रिपरेशन तो ट्रेनिंग तो ट्रेनर रहते हैं टीम के साथ, तो आप उस हिसाब से आपके बॉडी को जितना फ्रेश रख सकते हो, लेकिन ट्रेनिंग उतना ज़रूरी है। तो ज़्यादा एक्सर्शन नहीं करती हूँ मैं मैच के एक दिन पहले, पर थोड़ा बहुत फिटनेस तो करना ही पड़ता है, बिकॉज यू वांट योर बॉडी टू बी, मतलब ईजी रहना चाहिए। बॉडी लूज ईजी रहेगा तो जो मूवमेंट्स होती हैं वो अच्छा होता है ग्राउंड में। जैसे एज ए बैट्समैन फ्रंट और बैक या स्टेप आउट के लिए जो लेग्स का मूवमेंट होता है, उसके लिए थोड़ा बहुत तो आपको ट्रेनिंग करना ही पड़ता है। बट मेंटल सेटअप के लिए मुझे लगता है कि वो 1-2 वीक्स पहले से ही स्टार्ट होती है। ऐसे नहीं कि कल मैच है तो रात से आप प्रिपेयर करते हो। आपको मेंटल प्रिपरेशन हर रोज, जैसे आप फिजिकल फिटनेस करते हो या अपने स्किल पे वर्क करते हो, साथ ही साथ आपको मेंटल सेटअप पे भी वर्क करना पड़ता है। वो भी एक हिस्सा है। और लेकिन ये है कि माइंड भी थक जाता है। आप कंप्लीट पूरा दिन फोकस करोगे, ऐसे सोच के जाओगे, तो वो नहीं कर सकते हैं आप। माइंड को भी फ्रेश होना है, लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम कितना आप फोकस कर सकते हो वो भी इम्पोर्टेंट है। जैसे मैं क्या करती हूँ, जैसे मैं ग्राउंड पे रहती हूँ तो मैं ग्राउंड पे जो चीज़ें करनी होती है मैं वो करती हूँ। जब मैं रूम में आती हूँ, होटल रूम में, तो मैं ग्राउंड के चीज़ों को होटल रूम में लेकर नहीं आती हूँ। जैसे कि से 2 दिन पहले मैच के अगर मैं ट्रेनिंग में 3-4 बार आउट हो गई हूँ, नेट्स में आउट हो गई हूँ, तो मैं
जी, जी।
वापस जब होटल रूम आती हूँ, मैं ये नहीं सोचूंगी कि मैंने 3-4 बार आउट हो गई हूँ तो कल बैटिंग कैसे होगी। कल का बैटिंग कल सोचूंगी मैं, लेकिन जब मैं रूम में होती हूँ तो मैं ये सोचती हूँ कि मैं चीज़ों को कैसे अच्छा कर सकती हूँ, इस पे मैं सोचूंगी। ये नहीं सोचूंगी कि जो हो गया वो हो गया, अभी मैं वापस तो नेट सेशन नहीं कर सकती हूँ उस दिन के लिए, लेकिन नेक्स्ट डे नेट सेशन के लिए मेरे को जो काम करना है मैं वो सोच के फिर से मैं रिलैक्स करूंगी, ताकि नेक्स्ट डे जब मैं ट्रेनिंग सेशन में जाती हूँ तो मेरा माइंड फ्रेश रहे। क्योंकि अक्सर ऐसा होता है ना कि आप ज़्यादा सोचते हो तो आप थक जाते हो, तो आप सो जाते हो, क्योंकि माइंड थक जाती है, आपको नींद आता है। मैचेस में भी ऐसा कई बार हुआ होगा कि आपका माइंड जब थक जाता है ना, आप थोड़ा स्लो हो जाते हो। तो इसलिए माइंड को इतना ड्रेन नहीं करना चाहिए। जब आप ग्राउंड पे जाते हो
कंटिन्यू।
तो आपको फ्रेश रहना है। तो वो आप कैसे कर, वो काफी इंडिविजुअल चीज है, लेकिन आप उस पर वर्क कर सकते हो।
ओके मैम, थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you, Mitali. I think it's been, I think, the most amazing experience for both of them. It's really going to be one for their memory books for sure. I'm going to now request my Vice President to join us on screen. Samatadi.
Yes. Thanks, Mitali. As captain of women's
I again
ODI
can't
cricket
hear.
team.
There's again some audio.
Yeah. Well, as captain of India's ODI cricket team, you have made us all proud. You are an inspiration to many. Thank you for sharing your rich cricketing experience. And we thank Pooja and Ayantika for joining in. May you bring more laurels to women's cricket. Thanks to Gautam Vimani for wonderfully conducting the show. Thanks both of you for your time. Thanks to our members, online viewers, and the media for support. Now over to Dia.
Thank you. Thank you both so much once again for this thought provoking and extremely engaging session. Mitali, your legacy is unrivaled, and you're such a tremendous ambassador of the game. And I think if we were in a live environment today, we would have all given you a standing ovation by now. So we wish you the very best as you continue to lead Team India. And to all of you who have joined us today, thank you all. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon on our next webinar. Thank you so much once again.